Hi, my name is Sam Led, and welcome to The Fearless Now. This is for you and you in the nosebleed seats if you're looking for an easier way to approach anxiety, stress, and unhealthy habits from the inside out. There's no techniques and no strategies, so sit back, relax, and let me be your peace of mind Uber driver here on The Fearless Now. Welcome to The Fearless Now podcast. My name is Sam Led. I'm a transformational coach. And this podcast is for you and you in the nosebleed seats. We are at episode number 20, and we're on a roll. I mean, this has been a labor of love, and I couldn't have done it without you guys. Your support, you subscribing, you liking this podcast means the world to me because I know that you're listening and that you're enjoying it, and that I'm somehow, some way putting a smile on your face and just instilling a feel-good feeling. And if I can do that, then I've accomplished my goal. But again, this podcast is really for you. So like and subscribe and comment. So what are we going to talk about today? Episode number 20 being really kind of that turning point. Like, I've done 20 episodes and I've loved doing every one of them. So I thought for this special episode number 20, I'd begin reading from a little bit of Syd Banks from his book, The Missing Link. And as you know, Syd Banks was this brilliant Scottish mystic who had this epiphany about 55 years ago. Very normal, average guy with a ninth grade education, was a welder in British Columbia. He suffered a lot in his thinking. He was not very happy. He was getting divorced and he was argumentative and had all these turbulent relationships with people. And then one day he saw what we see every day, but don't pay attention to it enough. The illusion of thought, that this wonderful computer between our ears called our brain is making up a story sometimes that is not in alignment of who we are naturally. But just like turbulent weather moving through, the sun comes out and we see clearly again. So without further delay, let me read from The Missing Link. And what I end up doing is just opening up to a page, really. And it's kind of like I'm supposed to read this passage. And I sometimes just will put the book next to my bed at night, and especially if I'm feeling overwhelmed or I just need to drop out of my thinking or I just need a moment of clarity, I go to Syd. I go to Syd's Missing Link. So here goes. Mental health lies within the consciousness of all human beings, but it is shrouded and held prisoner by our own erroneous thoughts. That is why we must look past our contaminated thoughts to find the purity and wisdom that lies inside our own consciousness. When the wise tell us to look within, they are directing us beyond intellectual analysis of personal thought to a higher order of knowledge called wisdom, which is a great jumping off point. It's one of my favorite passages. It's funny because I end up turning to page 41 all the time. It must be just a divine moment there that I end up hitting the same page a lot. Now, what is Syd saying and what does that mean? He's saying that we are far beyond the bevy of our momentary and very fickle thought and thinking when we are caught up in our noise that naturally flows through us, whether we're healthy or sick, rich or poor, young or old, are in prison or in a mansion in Beverly Hills. It really is that once we see thought and thinking is fluctuating, it's like barometric pressure. It's like a weather system and that we really have no control over, but we do have agency over those thoughts that are moving through us and which ones to pick and choose from, like a salad bar, which ones are working for us that we can act on that are healthy for us and our family, and the ones that we should probably keep to ourselves. And we all got crazy thoughts. And the beauty and the wonderful part of this passage about mental health lying within all of us is that once we get to see that in the people that we love, in our coworkers and our customers, the leaders in our nation, that they're going to have the same kind of frailties with thought and thinking as we have, it's so liberating. It's so liberating. And it opens up a lot more bandwidth to work with. Bandwidth meaning we're not spending more time spinning our wheels trying to figure out how people work or how to figure out how to convince someone or figure out how to forgive someone when they do us wrong. Now, obviously, if someone's doing us harm, physical harm, there's no excuse for that, or emotional harm. But you still can forgive it. And it's so liberating when you can forgive it because you create a lot of space for all the good stuff, all the positive stuff to look forward to in your life when you're not so focused on what someone has done to us. And we all have had people do not nice things to us, including myself. Which leads me to a little story that I might have shared before, but I'm going to share it again because it's so apropos to Syd Banks' passage in The Missing Link. I had a client many years ago, came into the office. He was really struggling. He was anxious in his head all the time. And he came in, initially he wanted to quit smoking, but his wife a little bit later told me that he was having chronic pain and he was just kind of upset because he had to retire after working for the auto industry for over 30 years. And he was just lashing out at everybody, screaming at everybody. And it was just horrible to people. And most of all, horrible to himself. When he came into the office with his wife was this lovely, very subtle woman in probably her late 50s, early 60s with her husband. The husband, as soon as he walked in the office, started saying things about me, about how I was dressed. He wasn't very nice. In fact, he was really good at putting me down. I guess I'm a sensitive bloke, but I can take it okay. But the way he did it, he really hit home to some of my insecurities. He really kind of triggered me. And I almost got sucked into his tirade. He wasn't happy to be there. In fact, he didn't believe in the work that I was doing. He didn't believe in the laser that I was using or believe in what we were going to do together. And so I had no expectation that my coaching and the acupressure work we were going to do together was going to be helpful. In fact, I was going to fire him as a client because he was really not nasty to me. And part of me was really hurt by the things that he said to me, and I'm not going to repeat them because it was completely unacceptable. Now, knowing what I know about the nature of thought and thinking, if I didn't really see it as he's just caught up in his crazy mind, that he's really suffering, if I took the bait, then I would have destroyed the opportunity for me to do some really good work with him or created a major incident. I really thought that he needed some psychiatric help. But I allowed him to say what he was going to say, ignored it completely, but just throwing him kindness and compassion, despite how awful he was to me, despite how obnoxious he was. And it wasn't just like he was making fun of my clothes. He was saying things that I won't even speak about what I looked like, about the stereotypes of certain religious groups. If I won't go into that because it's not appropriate, it was that bad. And knowing that a lot of times people that are bigots or have intolerance to others are just hurting inside really badly, that there is goodness in them. We see it all the time with people that are former Klans members that end up being crusaders for African Americans and other minority groups that have to deal with anti-Semitism and indifference to fellow man. So I, to the best of my ability, and I almost slipped up and reacted because it was nonstop through this session. And thank goodness his wife was there because he would listen to his wife. So after the first session, it was very hard for me to hold back and just tell him to go stick it. The old Sam not seeing the principles and the old Sam not redirecting my focus away from myself and onto my client, because my first responsibility is to my client. Now, looking back at it, was it okay, the things that he said to me and how horrible he treated me? No. But I got to see how caught up he was. It was almost like a laboratory for the three principles before I knew anything about the three principles, and realizing that I've been working and practicing the three principles way before I knew anything about it. And we all do that though. We all are practicing this understanding all the time. We just don't see it enough. We don't pay attention to it enough. I'm no one special. I love this work. I love doing this work. And that's why it was a lot easier for me to hold back and just to create a container of space for him just to lash out on me. I mean, I literally just was silent. So at the end of the session, he doesn't thank me. He storms out. The interesting part is I saw him, he tried to not show it, that he was really getting some help from the work that we were doing. And I saw the look on his wife's face and I could see she was about to cry. And I was using my laser to work on different acupressure points. I saw him start to calm down. It was beautiful. Saw him start to relax. I saw his breathing kind of decrease and just him come back into his own body, to ground himself into his own body. I began to see him, not his anger, not his reactivity. I got to see him. So the session ended and the client and his wife left. He stormed out of the room. She thanked me, gave me a hug, and just looked at me and said, "Thank you. Thank you." And you could see the pain in her eyes. I mean, there was this tiny woman, a Latin woman. She could see that she really has been on the other side of his anger, on the other side of his bullying for many, many years. You could see how it's taken a toll on her health. And I said to her, I said, he's beginning to see. He's beginning to see slowly but surely. And he's beginning to unwind. And the more we can have him unwind and come back into who he is, into the present, the better chance we have of really saving him and saving your sanity. And she's like, I've never experienced anything like this before with a therapist or a coach or someone like this. It was heartwarming to see. Well, I never saw the client again, but the wife of the client wrote me this beautiful email about how much it was helpful and how for the first time in a long time, she was able to see the man that she fell in love with 30, 40 years ago. And I thanked her, but when looking back at it now and seeing that we all drop in and out into our mental health naturally throughout the day, that we all have those liminal moments of utter peace and tranquility and well-being. We all get that feel-good feeling throughout the day, whether we're busy with work, whether we're schlepping our kids to school, when we're tired, when we're feeling overwhelmed because we have all these bills to pay and we have all these obligations and responsibilities. We still have this moment. It's kind of like where we just drop into this really fluffy feather bed of the present moment. And when I saw my client do that, I really saw him. Probably he hasn't shown him to his family or to his friends, or if he has any friends left. I mean, probably pushed his friends away, unfortunately. But for me to stay neutral and for me to have compassion for him, as hard as it was, and I don't know how I did it, honestly, because I probably would, even to this day, we all slip up. I slip up and react, and which is okay too. It's just what I knew how to do at the time, just like you do. But me just sitting and trying to have compassion for him in a very loving and neutral way is the greatest thing we can do to the most horrible people that treat us shitty, because they're just suffering. They're just caught up. And as Syd Banks says, and which is rung true for me, is I see mental health in everybody. And it's hard for us to do that sometimes when people are really horrible to us, or when we see people on the news being arrested for horrible crimes. It's hard to have compassion for people that really do us harm. But the more we try, the more we see, the less suffering we have for ourselves when we show compassion and less anger towards others. And this is every modern prophet and every coach and every modern day apostle has said these same words. But you can do that in real time. You have the ability to see the suffering in others, even though you're suffering because you're on the other side of their suffering, which manifests as anger or just being horrible. That the more you have compassion, the more you just have empathy for others, as hard as that is when they're coming at you with some pretty horrible stuff, the more you suffer less. And again, being human is the whole spectrum of thought and thinking and behavior. If you could unwrap some of that conditioning, that people need to be polite to me and how dare they? No, not everyone's going to treat you well, but that's okay because you have the ability to walk away. And also you can liberate yourself, show compassion for them and walk away. I hope this has been helpful. I'm so glad to be here for all you guys. Episode number 20. Wow. This program is made possible by all of you guys, you in the nosebleed seats. Please like, subscribe, and comment. And the more people you tell that really need to hear this, they tell their friends, they tell their friends, and they tell their friends. Have a great day, everybody. And I'll see you again for another episode of The Fearless Now.